I'm a hustler, baby.
It's time for Hustle Her podcast. I'm your host, Deshae Keynes. Hustle Her is all about inspiring women through real life experiences that have helped to mold and develop not only me, but my guest into the entrepreneurs and leaders we are today. If you're an enterprising woman determined to succeed and looking for a bit of motivation, a bit of tough love, and some actionable takeaways to be the best you, girl, you are in the right place. Hey guys, and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you again for joining me. If it's your first time here, make sure that you subscribe to the channel and then head over to the website www.hustleherpodcast.com. Really excited about my next guest. Not only is she the first sole Black founder of a genomics company, CariGenetics, she is also a Bermudian, and we are so excited to have her here. Please help me welcome Dr. Carika Weldon.
I'm so excited to be here. This is my first podcast.
Yes.
I'm a little nervous, but I'm really excited for what's in store.
I'm excited. I'm really excited. I think we're going to just be very comfortable, very casual. It's just you and I chatting it up. Just happen to have a lot of lights and 3 cameras and Lara, and we'll be good. Okay? All right. So let's jump into some rapid fires and then we'll go from there. All right. What do you like to do to decompress?
Oh, I watch Netflix.
What's your favorite show currently?
Love is Blind.
I
need to go back and watch the finale. I didn't come
tonight.
It's tonight, right?
Yes,
for us, right?
9 p.m.
So I'll be like posted in my bed with my snacks and watching the drama.
I feel like we should have had like a watch party.
I know. We should have. But yeah, that's what I like to do. I like to just be in my bed watching Netflix.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so favorite couple from this season?
Oh, that's easy. Brett and Tiffany.
Okay, cool.
Has to be.
Yes,
has to be.
Absolutely.
It's the first like fully Black couple that's
I know. That's why
nice. So,
really happy about it.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm very pleased. I had lost faith actually in the show.
Agreed.
Like season 2 and 3, I was just like, God, just wrap it up. This is just toxic. This is bad for people. But I'm glad that we now gotten something pretty good out of it.
I totally agree. They salvaged. I'm back a fan.
Exactly.
Really into it.
Do season 5 to 10. I'll watch.
There you go. Here we go. I'm gonna hold on to Brett and Tiffany. They got a lot of pressure though.
This is true.
A lot of pressure. All right, cool. What is your favorite meal to cook?
Ooh, I'm a baker, so I have a very strong sweet tooth.
Really? So what's your favorite thing to bake?
Chocolate cookies.
So did you bring
I definitely
today?
Did. But I actually am about to buy stuff after this to try something new. I'm going to try a peach cobbler today.
Okay, well, I don't want to be a test dummy, but I will take some chocolate chip cookies next time you make them.
Noted.
Cool. All right. You know where I live now,
I
so
do know
there's no excuse. All right. What's your favorite thing to do in the summertime?
Oh, okay. What did I do last summer?
Other than work?
I didn't really work last summer either.
Oh.
I was like still in my Zen retirement mode after I resigned. Okay, this is a bit of a trick question because I was living in England most of the time. Mm-hmm. So summertime in England, go to the park and just be outside because it's like, oh my God, the sun's out. Mm-hmm. In Bermuda, I haven't really enjoyed the summer. This would probably be my first one where I can like plan to do stuff and enjoy. But I'm looking forward to traveling again. Yeah. That's one I have not done.
Oh, do it.
Since 2020.
It's so important.
So I think that might be on my list.
Yeah, for sure. But you got to enjoy Bermuda too. There's nowhere like
that
it.
Too. I mean, swimming is always nice.
Especially on the water. Yeah.
Like,
take full advantage.
I am not afraid of the water. I'm a water rat from a beach. I don't really like being on a boat.
Really?
I learned that last year. Like, because I like to be somewhere and then when I'm ready, I like to leave.
Okay. I can appreciate that.
I can't do it on the boat. I have to just still be there.
Yeah.
So I like to be in the water, but at the beach where I can like leave when I'm ready.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I get that. That is one thing about a boat that can be very, especially if you're on a boat, people who are not ready to go.
Right.
Very annoying.
Exactly. I remember we were watching last summer. 10 out of 10. Great experience. 1 out of 10 for being ready to go. Because you're right in the middle of the ocean, like, what are you doing now?
And it takes like almost an hour to get out there.
And then people's throwing up all over the place and you're like just trying to dodge them. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot.
I learned that I didn't like boats at that point.
The whale watching is heavy though. That's heavy boating.
It's heavy boating.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
That's not regular like cruise around the sound.
It's
boating. Not. For sure. Okay, cool. What is your favorite concert ever?
I have never been to a concert.
Really?
I have not.
Never like even caught much time? Not when you lived in London? England, sorry?
No, not
Oh, wow. No festivals, nothing. I'm very surprised by that.
No,
Like
I
most
haven't.
people that are out there, like I thought it was like a big festival culture.
It is, but it depends on who you're
Got you.
who you're with. But yeah, I've never been to a concert. No.
Okay.
Have to add that to my list of things to do.
Okay. And then what's a hidden talent of yours that no one knows about? Well, I feel like it's baking because I didn't know that.
Okay.
But
Well, it was hidden until last time. It was singing.
Oh, yes.
I definitely hit the karaoke's and do my thing.
Yeah.
What else can I do? I play violin.
Okay.
I don't know if people know that. I mean, I used to do it when I was younger. I still do, but it's not something I do regularly, so people may not know that.
Get it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. And then what are you most looking forward to coming up in your life and whatever?
Being to a point where it's not a struggle. Nothing's a struggle. And everything's kind of like in motion and going. Obviously, I like challenges, but it's going to be nice to, like, for example, get my business to a point where it's just going. And I'm actually looking forward as well to having family. Nice. But I don't want to do that until everything's kind of in motion. So, yeah, prepping for that.
Okay, love that. All right, guilty pleasure.
I mean, I could eat at 2, 3 in the morning, and it's definitely going to be chocolate. Or like some heavy snack, like some muffins or something, or
at 2
cookies.
o'clock in the morning, really?
Oh yeah,
Cookies
I cannot sleep if I'm hungry.
I agree.
I can't do it. So I would rather sit there in the dark, nibbling away at whatever I have, than to be like struggling to sleep.
I get that. So with me, it's hungry or hot. Hot,
that too.
Can't do it.
Yeah, I can't do the heat.
Cannot do it.
Yeah.
Okay, and then who is your celebrity crush?
Ooh, okay. Michael Ealy. Oh yeah.
Yes.
I will watch a movie even if it's bad. If he's in it, I'm gonna watch it.
I'm gonna watch it.
I
agree with
I'm
you. I'm here for this.
I stand by him.
Yeah, my favorite Michael Ealy character recently would be Being Mary Jane when he was on Being Mary Jane.
Yeah,
the last
I
few
agree.
seasons.
Yeah.
He gave me all the feels. Yeah.
I was jealous. But,
for sure.
Had to work through that.
Honestly, Mary Jane, get your life together.
Exactly.
Anyway, he could do no wrong.
Exactly.
All right, so let's jump in. Tell me about young Carika. Carika, 8, 9, 10. What does she like to do?
Well, I used to do everything. So I used to do gymnastics. I used to do triathlons. Just active all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah. 8, 9, 10. I was in primary school. I went to Port Royal. So I used to run track. I used to do every sport you could think of.
Yeah.
Tennis, netball, everything.
Wow.
And then obviously still do my schoolwork as well. But yeah, I mean, I figured out when I was 10, and I was doing violin from them as well. I started when I was 9, I think. And swimming. Okay, I have a funny story. So I used to go to Port Royal. I used to go swimming at War Academy.
Okay.
So I would get the bus. And this one day I must have left my stuff on the bus. So I got to swimming. I didn't have my swimming stuff.
Yeah.
And my parents do this reenactment all the time. Apparently I had this very posh accent. And I was like, yeah, I left my towel and my underwear and my goggles. Like, I was describing it. But yeah, they remind me of that every single time.
Really? All the time?
All the time.
That you just randomly left your stuff?
But no, the accent.
The accent.
It's the accent that
Where
they
did
were
it come from?
I don't really know. I need to investigate. I feel like they might be making it up because I never talked about that before. But yeah, that was me. I was always doing something. My parents were very good at making sure I was engaged and never too idle because I would just start trouble.
Or different accents.
Or different accents. Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
He couldn't swim. There came an accent.
I'm gonna have to tell him that.
That's hilarious. Okay, so I guess after like young Carika, when did you know that you wanted to be involved in science? When did that become kind of like your passion?
Well, it was at 10 actually. So I was in Sunday school at the time, and they had like this video of Dr. Ben Carson playing first neurosurgeon to separate, conjoined twins. And I was like, I want to be like him. So from that point, I knew I wanted to be a doctor.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a neurosurgeon.
Got you.
That was what I wanted to be at 10. So I knew that science was important and maths. And I got to the point where I think I was maybe like 14, 15. I was like, brain surgery is a bit heavy. I'm not sure if I want to be doing that.
Fair point.
People's lives.
Forever.
Yeah, like, seems a bit too much. So I just switched to pediatrics. I was like, I like children. But I always knew I loved science. But my strength was math. So a lot of people, like I used to do advanced math classes after school. once a week with C2I,
Okay.
Bermuda. So I was doing like actuarial science when I was like 14.
Wow.
And so a lot of people thought I was going to go that route because I was really good at math, right? So they thought, yeah, I'm just going to be an actuary. Like some of my friends were actually in that course. But yeah, I just had a more love for understanding like how things worked and that scientific curiosity. So I opted to go the science route.
Ah. So you went off, what happened after that? Like you finished high school here in Bermuda?
Finished high school.
Where did you go to high school?
War Academy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you didn't have to leave your swim stuff anymore.
I didn't have to leave my so I was there. So that worked out perfect.
This is gonna be weaved in for the rest of the conversation, by the way. So that worked out good.
Worked out perfect.
So then after Work Academy, what happened after that?
So went straight to university in England. Big step. And I remember the year before I went to apply, the government in England changed the law so that anyone from overseas territories would pay home fees. I was like, this is perfect, parents.
Yeah.
My parents wanted me to go like the US or Canada.
Yeah,
like,
look cheaper.
Yeah. I'm like, look, no, the UK is cheaper. Look at this. So yeah, I went to University of Leicester in the UK. But yeah, a bit of a story here. So like I said, I wanted to do medicine. So I had applied through UCAS, which is, the UK's application. You can only apply to 4 schools, even though it's 5 spots, if you do medicine, because they always want you to have a backup. So I applied to those 4. You have to do it really early. So it was like October of the year before you try to enter. In the meantime, my mom was like, still apply to the US and Canada. So I applied to, I think, 5 universities in Canada and 3 in the US. No, 4 in Canada, 3 in the US. So it was 12 in total. And my dream was to go to Oxford to do medicine. That was like, that was the dream. And with medicine, you always have to apply by like October 15th. Okay. Doesn't change. So you hear pretty early if you get an interview. And I remember hearing like really quickly by the end of October that I didn't get an interview. And I just thought, okay, my life's over because this was the only plan I had. The only plan I had. And, I was top of my year. I was doing IB, so International Baccalaureate. I was predicted 44 out of 45 points. Like everyone expected me to get in, as did I. And then I didn't get an interview. I'm just like, okay, guess that's not gonna happen. I guess I'll just stay in Bermuda.
Yeah.
And so I remember going to the head of sixth form at the time and told her, I was like crying my eyes out. And she's like, okay, apply here as your backup, because another girl in my year who I was neck and neck with, Erin Vickers, she had applied to the University of Leicester for law and got in already. So really early. And then she was like, if she can get in, then you can also probably get in. Apply now. Let that be your backup. So I applied there for medical biochemistry and got in like that. I had to get like 30 points. So that was like easy. Heard back from the other 3 schools in the UK. No.
Wow.
I got into like all of them in Canada and into, I think, University of Penn in States, but I didn't want to go there. I wanted to go to England, so I ended up going to my backup, which was University of Leicester.
And how did you enjoy that experience?
It was really good. I mean, I actually went with another Bermudian. So we found out we were like cousins the month before. How moms are, right? Yeah. My mom was like, I found someone that's going on your course, and she's our cousin. I'm like, okay. So we go to their house like in August to meet them and, kind of get acquainted, and we all traveled together. So it was nice because I had someone else that I at least knew before I got there, like a month before I got there, but was, a Bermudian there with me. And I loved it. But it was during that time, and I actually was trying again to get into medicine. So in the UK, if you do medicine, the first year was exactly the same as my course. So I was in a medical course, but it wasn't medicine. And so you had the opportunity to potentially like convert over to medicine. So I, fit the grades for that, tried to apply, and we had to do this aptitude test because we had not been in the UK. Both me and my cousin went to New York to the UK, so I did the US to do the test because we couldn't do it here. And we both took it same time, like, it was on the computer. I finished first, said it was an error. They're like, hey, maybe we're going to sort that out. She comes out, gets her results, and everything's fine. So I'm like, what happened to mine? They're like, hey, we'll, call back in a few days. Do that. We're now back in Bermuda. I'm calling. They're like, hey, call the HQ. And they basically was like, it's like you never took the test.
No. Yeah,
I was like, well, I remember I was working at the hospital like during the summer, and I just like started crying. I'm a crybaby. That's another thing. I just started crying again. I'm like, what are we gonna do? And they're like, hey, we're gonna make you exempt from this, which was what happened the year before because I was in Bermuda. But because I was not in the UK, I should have taken this. I was like, okay, I get exempt. Then I find out that in order to get an interview, which I knew if I got an interview, I would have killed it. In order to get an interview, you had to get 30 points, and I got 29.
Oh, no.
And I was like, if I would have got that result instead of not being exempt, that could have been an extra point.
Yeah.
So I just gave up trying to get into medicine at that point. Yeah. But then I realized that actually research is more my passion. And by the third year, I had the opportunity to do a PhD if I, finished with a good grade. And that's the way I went. So, yeah.
Cool. I mean, I would have never thought any of that, first of all. Yeah. And then, so you're in genetics from your PhD, and then you end up staying in the UK.
I end up staying.
Right. So what made you stay in the UK?
So a few things. First thing was my PhD was with the same supervisor as my undergraduate project.
Okay.
And it wasn't in genetics, it was in biochemistry, but the field that we're in, which was in splicing, I'm not gonna get into it, but it's basically like borderline genetics and biochemistry. So it was a bit of that. And then the other part of it also was that my PhD supervisor's PhD supervisor, when he was being trained, was actually the guy that invented how to sequence DNA. So he won like 2 Nobel Prizes for that.
Oh, that's cool.
Super cool, right? So I was like, I'm like in genetic royalty, so it felt kind of cool. But yeah, the reason I stayed in England initially when I finished is because there's no real science jobs back in Bermuda, right? I mean, I had my education fully funded from scholarships here. So I always wanted to come back and, say thank you and give back, but I didn't want to be a science teacher. So I was just like, what am I going to do? Okay. Like, I want to do research, and there wasn't any here. So I had the opportunity to get a teaching/research position as a lecturer in the same city right when I finished. So I went straight into that. And then I was trying to come back actually after that in 3 years as I was into that. Then I got advice, go to a top research university, get affiliated. So that's why I went to Oxford.
So you end up at Oxford anyway?
I end up at Oxford anyway. Yeah, exactly. 10 years later, then I
crazy how life comes around, right?
Yeah, 10 years later, and now they were paying me. So
there you go. Yeah, it was like, better. Hey, you made a mistake a few years ago.
Exactly. And actually that came up. So the person that I spoke to was had asked and said, well, why, if she's so brilliant, why wasn't she here all this time? And there's advocating for me was said because of how she looks. Like you wouldn't have given her a chance if you saw some little 18-year-old little black girl from Bermuda. So which they didn't deny. So and when I actually worked at Oxford, I was the only black person on the team.
Wow, how was that?
I mean, I was used to it. England was like that. When I was teaching, I was the only black woman on the team as well out of 50. So only me and one other black guy. It's definitely something you get used to when you're in England because there is this very big kind of gap in terms of diversity. I think 4% of England is black, so you kind of get used to being the minority. So yeah, it wasn't a problem per se. Although I will say, like when I travel to conferences, and this is another kind of big moment for me, going to science conferences, went all over the world, like Japan, South Africa, Europe, the US. Every single time I would always count like how many black people live there. Like it's just instinctive.
It becomes
right?
like a game almost.
Like,
how many people look like me? I'll give the obligatory head nod.
Yeah, like, exactly. And every single time, like I without fail was 1%.
Really?
And at the biggest conference I went to was in the US, just under 1,000 people, and there was 10 of us.
Jeez.
And I was just like, there's got to be something wrong because I'm teaching the course that leads to you becoming a researcher, and there's 30% of my class is black in the UK where we're the minority. Right. So where are we dropping off? Like where's the 29% being lost? And so that became like a kind of focus of mine as well. Like this, I have to try to help fix that gap.
And was that a part of the reason why you kind of created the splicing conference here in Bermuda?
Exactly. So
that's how I actually met you. I don't know if you remember
that.
Yes,
I do remember. Yeah. So that was a huge reason why I created the charity that held that conference, because I first of all found out when I finished my PhD that I was watching a documentary on genetics in the words of the geneticists. So people like Watson and Crick, who discovered the structure and function of DNA. And it got to like towards the end, and the guy who was basically in charge of the UK side of the Human Genome Project. And the Human Genome Project was a global effort to sequence humans for the first time. He's like, yeah, we met in Bermuda. And he just keeps talking. I'm like, wait, what? Rewind. And I'm like, did he just say Bermuda? Like I'm in my, in the UK, like what? As a Bermudian, when you hear Bermuda, like your
instantly,
spidey senses, like what? So I looked it up, and it was a real thing. They had a meeting in Bermuda at Hamilton Princess in 1996 until 1998, so for 3 years. And they initially came here because the UK funded it. So it had to be on UK soil, but it couldn't be in England because it would have been biased. And they had to bring everyone from around the world, the heads of the labs, to figure out who owned the data. Because they were all generating genetic data, but no one had said, this is what we're doing with it. Right. So they met here and they decided that no one would own it, that would be free for everyone so that medical research could advance.
Wow.
And then they named that the Bermuda Principles.
Yeah.
They wrote that up and I was like, this is crazy. Like, we literally had genetics history happening on our shores.
And no one would have ever known.
And no one would have known. They would just saw like these 50 people go in a room and then walk out 3 days later like, oh, okay. But it, like, their decision like impacted everyone. So that's why I founded that charity, and that's why I was doing the conference to commemorate that initial conference. So yeah, that's how that all kind of came about. But yeah, a big piece of that was also the outreach piece, which was doing the school tour and talking to the children about it. And that came because I saw there was this big gap. So I was like, I can't fix it completely, but what I can do is try to at least inspire young Bermudians to get into it and see, if we can increase it that way.
Yeah. And how has that been going since then? I know the pandemic happened and you probably haven't had it since then, but in terms of getting more Bermudians interested in, genetics, like how has that been going?
Well, interestingly, the pandemic was the opposite of what you think.
Fair point.
Yeah. So actually, it was crazy because in the beginning of 2020, I had my 4th conference. Yeah. And
it was starting to really pick up and get traction. I remember.
It was really picking up. And that year we actually joined the school tour with the conference. So we had PhD students coming a week early from all over the world. And then we went out to the schools, local and private and public. And we were doing the workshops. And then we had the conference. And we had people from the original conference come back. And we, showed them the hotel room. Like, it was all kind
really
of
cool.
Building up. And then the pandemic hit. But the funny thing is, I had met with the government and they were like, we want to give you a building for research. I was going to come back at the end of 2020 to start kind of figuring this out because I knew that we could do it in Bermuda. There was no reason why we couldn't. And then, the pandemic hit and I'm being flown back in. And, now as a scientist, I've been put on the news every other day for and talking about science, and now science is the most important thing in the world. Yeah. So it definitely helped a whole lot to kind of shift people's thoughts on genetics and science in general. So I've actually seen a spike. I was told actually from the Centennial Foundation, where I actually got my first scholarship, that last year when they had scholarship interviews and a lot of the winners, most of them, well, not most, but a high number of them were going to biomedical science because of, the pandemic and seeing me and whatnot. So, or they coded that they were inspired by me. So it's definitely been still happening, just not the way I thought. Yeah. But actually just last week as well, and we're kind of in the midst of it because we're finishing off this week, we've gone back into the schools. So with my new company, and we've done another school tour again, so it's nice to get back to the young children. This time to the primary level, so that was very exciting.
Inspire them young.
Oh yeah, they're blowing my minds away. But so we're getting back into it.
Cool. So let's take back to 2020. So you're thinking, I want to come back home, but it was supposed to be to the end of 2020, and then obviously we all know worldwide pandemic happened, and you're kind of thrust to come back to Bermuda. Did you think that you were going to be here for as long as you were, or did you think it was just a short-term kind of thing?
I brought clothes to be here for 2 months.
No way.
And I didn't bring anything to be in front of a camera. I just thought I was going to be in a little hole, in a little room, doing tests, get things started, and then go back. Yeah. So when I came with April. I literally thought I'd be back by June. I was on secondment from my job. They didn't need me because they had now shifted to doing genetic sequencing of the virus, which I wasn't needed for at that time. And I 3 months max, 2 to 3 months. That's what I thought. I'll come, do what I need to do, go back, jump into what they're doing, and then finish off my position until November of 2020. That was the plan.
Yeah.
That didn't happen.
That did not happen. So when you came back, you essentially built this product from the ground up, or was it kind of you just took over from what was already happening?
Oh no. It was definitely from scratch.
Really?
Oh yeah. So basically, I get a call. I was in Nigeria actually. I was on holiday. And I get
It's the beginning of the
At
pandemic.
the beginning of the pandemic, I was like, let me get out of this country. I was going, my ex was Nigerian, so I was on my way to see him for his birthday. And it just so happened that the day I got in Nigeria, they had just become COVID free. And England was like going up. So I was like, ooh, I'm in the better place now.
Right.
You know, we can move around. It didn't feel like you were in a global pandemic at the time. I get a call. Well, when I traveled to Nigeria, because they've dealt with these types of things regularly, right?
And stuff, yep.
So they had things really set up. They had, you know, the paperwork to say where you have traveled, when you landed. They had like the big screen with the temperature, and they had it all like really well laid out. And that was like
which is crazy
middle
because
of March.
Most people would think the opposite.
Exactly.
It being in Africa, right?
Mm-hmm. So I was like, I took pictures. I was like, oh, this is really cool.
Yeah.
So I sent it back to Bermuda. I was like, you know, I think you guys need to have this in place because this is really like efficient. And that was kind of like the start of my, I suppose, advising. Because like 2 days later, they had it the same thing in place. So I was just like, yeah, just helping out with the way I could. I actually wanted to get stuck in Nigeria. Was in love, whatever. I was like, oh, we could be together. Yeah. Oh my god.
Not you rolling your eyes. Oh god.
Well, yeah, that situation is finished now. But yeah, so that was my plan at the time. I was like, I can get stuck here, especially because it was COVID free and it didn't feel like you were being like suffocated, right? Because I just come from England, where, I mean, I think I was in Reading when they announced the first COVID death was in Reading, and I was like, get me out of this place.
Yeah.
So that was my plan initially, but I was actually scheduled on the last flight out. Like that was already my flight.
Wow.
It just happened to be the last flight out of Nigeria. So I left. I went to England and I was like in my little room, happily there by myself for 2 weeks with my snacks, you know, chilling, going to the store when I need to. And I had actually been working with Planet Math and Brain Hub to do like these kind of like interactive sessions during the day, because schools had just closed and teachers had to like transition to working online. So I was happily like getting different cool science experiments for stuff in your house ready, and, you know, just enjoying that from the comfort of my room. And yeah, then I got a call like, okay, what do you need to do a COVID test? And I'm like, this is from an accountant, by the way. Like, okay, you need a PCR machine, you need, you know, PCR enzyme and primer, and just going through the list. And she's like, you know, would the doctor's office have this? And I said, I don't think so. That's more of like a research thing. It's like, well, would you want to come back and help set it up? And I was like, if you need me, you know, I didn't think you did. I just saw that we had our, you know, some local testing. So I didn't think I was needed at all. But I was like, if so, then that's fine. And then I was asked by that person to connect me to the government, to the premier. And he like agreed and said, yep, you need to come back. So I was like, okay. So yeah, at that moment I knew I was coming back, but I wasn't really planning on doing that at the time. Yeah. But now there was nothing, there was nothing in place. If I can speak, there was a lot of resistance to what was trying to be created.
But why though? Why do you think that was the case? Because it was you coming from you as a younger woman, or what do you think?
I don't think it had anything to do with me being a young woman or being young. Like, I don't think it had anything to do with that. It just had it came from a place where money was on the table, and the thought was that I was coming to take some of that money.
Gotcha.
That's the bottom line. It took me a while to figure that out, but yeah.
Is that why you kind of came forward and were like, was like initially you weren't taking a salary?
100%. That was the advice I was given. For me, it wasn't about, oh, let me get rich quick. Like that wasn't even near on my mind. My mind was, we need to have testing locally because this is, you know, affecting people's lives. Like, I mean, before I got here, was it before the week I got here? So I got here like April 6th, I think. I want to say like the next day on the 7th of April, my aunt was actually in Panama with her husband. And they had caught COVID and she ended up passing. They were both in the hospital at the same time.
Sorry, I heard about this story.
Yeah,
yes.
so that's my great aunt. Thanks for that. And so like it was real from the time I got here, because I'm like, this is not a game. This is not a joke. This is not a drill. Like, people are dying. So that was where my mind was. But yeah, it was pushed back because of money.
So how did you end up navigating that?
Well, yeah, because I had good advisors. That's the first thing. So I really, I know that I don't know everything. Yeah, it's a very important thing, and to know that there are others that have better knowledge. And I didn't know all the facts. I didn't know how much the contracts were. I didn't know anything. I was just told, stay clear. And I said, you know what? At the end of the day, I'm not here for that. And I would rather be on the complete opposite end of it. So if I'm getting nothing, that's the only way I'm on the opposite side. If I take $1, I'm still getting paid. And again, I didn't think I was going to be here that long. So I was like, you know, it's a few months. I was already still getting, like, I was on secondment. So I was getting my Oxford pay, which was paying for my UK apartment. So that was fine. But yeah, that was the decision I made, and I made it clear to the premier to make sure that was known, because, you know, there was rumblings going on. Oh, what's her motive? Why is she here?
Which is so unfortunate, because who actually cares, right? At the end of the day, if you're coming in, you're the only Bermuda that I'm aware of that could do that, correct?
Correct.
And so if you're coming back, I actually don't see a problem with paying you, because that's what you went to school for. This is what you do every single day. What is wrong with paying you what you're worth to actually come and do that job here?
Exactly. And so I don't even think it was a problem of paying me for my services. It was this notion by those that held the contract that we are the only lab that can do this. I was actually told that we are the only ones in this country that can do it. We're the only ones that's been given the go ahead. You can't do it. And I guess they saw if I was to start, that it would take some of their money. So that's basically what that was. Yeah.
So then when did it pivot from, okay, it's now been 3 months, I'm still here, maybe I'm staying?
It got to that point, well, pretty early on, because I came, I was in quarantine. That was a whole thing as well. I didn't want to be in quarantine. I felt like I knew I had to build a lab from scratch, and I wanted to be present in seeing what was going on, but I complied just so there was no issues, because that could have been used. It was very obvious that there was a lot of kind of political whatever involved. So I said, okay, for the sake of it, I'll sit in the room. So I had like video calls of people that I was working with, so I could still see. When we started, which was like about 2 weeks, well, actually less than that. I got her on the 6th, on the 19th. So like just under 2 weeks after I got her, we opened up the government lab with people that I wasn't there. I was in quarantine. So I had 2 other people working with me. That day we started, April 19th. By the end of April, crunching the numbers, it was very apparent that what we were doing was more cost effective for the people of Bermuda. So at that point, they had to terminate the other contract. So I already knew from that point that this is going to be a bit longer than I planned. But I didn't realize that meant I had to be the one doing it, and then I had to stay. So yeah, I knew from early, but I kind of still thought, okay, I'll get this going and then hand over and then go. But realize, no, that's not going to be.
That's not what's going to be the case.
No.
So you're here. It's now 2023, and you're still here.
I'm still here. Yeah, no, I made the decision. I want to say like August. Yeah, I think I was here for like just over 6 months. So I'll move back. I had to resign from my Oxford position, and then that allowed me to start getting paid here, because now I wanted to, like, you know, I should get paid. Now I'm like, I'm putting all this work in.
Absolutely.
I didn't get paid for the first 6 months, and it was an everyday, like, at least 16, 17 hours a day, 7 days a week job. Not just doing the lab, but also advising the premier and all that came with that, press conferences and all, and the people blaming me for stuff, like everything that was coming with it. So yeah, that was the decision I made in August 2020. And so yeah, now I'm still here.
And now you've pivoted from that, and you're now running your own company.
Yeah.
And how is that? How is that going?
Oh my God, dreadful. Sometimes it's scary.
But that's honestly true. Entrepreneurship, it's not always glitz and glamour.
Oh,
right?
It's not. It's not. And the funny thing is, like, so I mean, as people have probably seen now, we made it public that we did raise over $1 million, and we still are in our first capital raise. But it looks so great. But I kid you not, 3 weeks before that, I was ready to pack up and be done.
Right.
I was like, this is not working. Like, I'm not going to put people's well-being and her livelihood on the line. If I can't raise the money, then let's just start while we're behind, you know?
For sure.
Lots of nights where I was like, getting a crybaby. I was just crying. I can't do this. What am I doing? Like, just having conversation with myself, like, huh? What? You did what? No, you shouldn't have done this. So yeah, it's not all glitz and glam. It's been very scary, but at the same time, obviously rewarded when it does work. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
staying there. It does happen. But yeah, it's been a different ride.
Yeah.
It's been a whole different roller coaster of a ride.
Yeah. Going from like the money's there, you're just in the lab doing the research, to actually being the person to get the funding.
Oh yeah.
It's two different things.
Exactly. I mean, and the thing is, when I was in Oxford, they had, so I was in the Wellcome Trust Center for Human Genetics. So the Wellcome Trust is a UK like funding body that funds research. They actually were the ones that funded the UK's efforts for the Human Genome Project. They've got loads of money, right?
Yeah.
So they actually funded in my department, or my in the Oxford Genomics Center, they funded 10 positions, but we had a team of 50. The other 40 positions were funded from the revenue. That was kind of like my first like glimpse into like doing it as a business. And I was like, what? I remember sitting there in the first Christmas like end of year update, and they were like, yeah, we turned over 5 million. And I'm like, huh? What?
How are we making money
How are we
here?
doing that? I was like, okay. So I knew that it was possible. But again, I wasn't making decisions. I'm just, saying, hey boss, do you think I'm like, yeah, go ahead. I'm like, okay, cool. And then with COVID, obviously, yes, we had the layup and I had this team going to the schools, but again, I wasn't involved in any of the money side of things per se. Yeah, I had to get permission and get, granted permission to hire.
Yeah.
So it wasn't on me to like figure out any of that. It was just the science and logistics and execution. So now, it's a whole different ballgame. Like, can I hire this person? Let's see. Yeah, probably not. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
No, it's true. And then figuring out, so as an entrepreneur, we always talk about it. It's like an all-consuming job, right? You're doing everything. You're accounting, you're marketing, especially in the beginning of it. Does it take away currently from you doing the research part of it, or are you still doing both?
100% takes away. So initially when I started, I launched last October. It was just me. Like you said, I was doing like everything. And I already knew, I guess I've had a bit of like training pre-launch my own company where I knew certain things like I can't do this by myself. Yeah. So with my charity, I was doing everything myself. Yeah. I was social media person. I was handling all I was the one begging for money and fundraising and doing everything. And I tried to build a team out. I want to say in like 2018, and then that didn't work. So I was like, yep, let's not do that. So I already knew that it's not possible to do all by myself. I need like people I can trust and rely on. Then with COVID, same thing. Now it was like, there's no possible way I can do this on myself. So delegation is definitely something I learned during that time. So this time round, I just knew that if I was to raise some money, the first thing I need to do was hire people, because it was just going to be no way at all that I was going to be able to manage otherwise. So even though like last year I was the one doing it, as soon as we raised our first bit of money, by the end of last year I hired 3 people.
It's so helpful when you have people and then you're able to focus on the craft that you actually want to do, right? Exactly. It's really that's actually more fruitful of it, because then you don't resent being an entrepreneur. Exactly. And then that's when you don't want to throw in the towel as much, because you allow people to do what they're good at. Exactly. So you can do. Exactly. So yeah. So
the only thing that kind of got in the way of that this year was the capital raise, right? So I know, it's obvious that people know my name, right? I have to be the one in the room talking. Yep. I do have a staff member that handles stakeholders, but I had to be present, and I really felt like I said there's real pressure on me. Like, if I don't raise this money, the staff I just hired, you'll run 3-month contracts. So they all knew that it was going to be based on if we raised more money, but like they wouldn't have food to eat. Like, that's where my mind went.
That's a heavy load to carry.
It's heavy, and heavy. I could not think of anything else. And so only now, I want to say, what was it, like the 3rd week of March when we got the commitments, I've been able to think about science. But before that, we were doing stuff pre getting ready for research, but I really couldn't it wasn't fun for me, because I'm like, but that's not putting food on my table, right? Exactly. You know what I mean? So now I can rest easy now. So I'm excited.
Breathe a little bit.
I can breathe.
So how has being a new entrepreneur kind of affected your personal life? Like, is it still all consuming, or like, are you able to balance, I guess, personal and business, or is that like non-existent?
No, I've always, I remember what I said when I got the call, I was in Nigeria. Yes. So I've always had that
former love of your life.
Yes, right. Former, who I thought was. So even like what people didn't know during that whole time, mostly, I want to say, I think I ended it like October, September 2021. But that whole time I was going through all the stuff publicly with all the politics, and I was in a long distance relationship,
which is also very
as
hard.
well, right? So that was a whole lot. I've always kind of been okay with balancing it out. I would actually have to say I don't think I would have been able to get here if it wasn't for the support that I have and my friends and those who are close to me, because I would say this process of becoming an entrepreneur, becoming one, and a successful one, I suppose, has been probably the hardest thing mentally for me. And saying that, having gone through like what I went through with government, like just blows my mind as well. I'm like, I didn't think it'd get worse than that. Like, what is this? But it's the pressure, like I said earlier, like the pressure of knowing what I do or don't do is gonna affect someone else and their like ability to eat. Like that type of pressure, like is a lot. But yeah, I wouldn't have been able to get to this point if it wasn't for my support in my personal life. So yeah, I think it's good to balance. And the other thing was, with when I was in government, I didn't have that balance right. So my work-life balance was off, and I found I was snapping at people all the time, like my staff even, and I had to kind of like pull back and be like, wait, they haven't done something right, but it's not the end of the world. You know what I mean? Like, but it was because I didn't have that balance. So I'm really kind of conscious of making sure that's there and stays.
Yeah, that's important. And then knowing that too, right?
Yeah,
like, it's, you know, I can be a real Sour Patch Kid if I'm like a little grumpy or, you know, hungry or tired, you know?
Yeah.
And recognizing that you need to pull back so you're not snapping on the people that you need is important.
Exactly.
It's totally important to know. So if you could like go back to young Carika applying for all these, you know, different places to get into university, what would you tell her, knowing everything you know now?
Save that scholarship money, man. Honestly, that's probably the biggest thing I regret. Yeah, I was like, oh, I'm balling. I got money. Like, I mean, because again, England wasn't that expensive, right? So tuition paid, flights paid. Come on.
Yeah.
Buying clothes, shoes, all sorts. I wish I would have saved some of that, because I could have had some savings that was growing over the last 10 years. Yeah. But other than that, I don't think I have any other thing I would tell myself. One thing I will say is, I believe it was in between my undergraduate to my PhD. At the time, when I was in England, I was actually in a gospel choir as well. So I used to travel the country and we like compete and stuff. They actually just won the BBC Gospel Choir of the Year competition
that's cool.
this year. Yeah. So I was doing that. And I remember like the church I was going, which was all where the choir was. The bishop said to me, you know, your PhD is the key in the ignition. And I was like, what does that mean? Key in what ignition? What are you talking about? I took it, but I really internalized that. And during my PhD, because that also not all nice, you know, there was a month where I didn't go in. I kept telling my supervisor I was sick. I just don't want to move. Like, it was cold, it was snowing. I was like, I don't want to go outside. Like, mentally, I just wasn't there. So it definitely had its ups and downs, but I always remembered that, like, your PhD is the key in the ignition.
You haven't turned it yet.
I haven't even got the key yet, right? And so when I got my PhD, I was like, okay, got the key. What's gonna happen now? Like, right? And then now look, right? So it's like, okay, if I hadn't done my PhD, I wouldn't have been able to help my country. Yeah. If I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be in the position now where I'm trying to help the region, right? The Caribbean. So it's like, okay, each thing has had its place. Yeah. So what I would, if I had to say, like, just follow advice. Like, listen, like, it's coming. There's a bigger picture. Yeah. Eventually it came, but yeah, that would be what I would tell myself.
Yeah, for sure. So what would you say as an entrepreneur? And obviously it's been almost a year, right?
Being an entrepreneur?
Yeah. Like full time?
So I took off, I think I picked this back up like March last year, but then I took like a 2-month break. So I picked it back up June. Officially, like, I'll say June. So yeah,
okay. Just under a year. So what would be something like advice you would give to other starting or budding entrepreneurs, especially in the space where they need to raise funds? Like, what would you kind of give, like, advice you would give to them?
Yeah. So first thing is, you can have a great idea, but in order to get people's money, and they can still think you have a great idea, but you have to make sure that you've covered all your bases. Because someone saying, oh, that's a good idea, and someone writing you a check, two different things. the people parting with their money, it's totally different. The other thing I would say is some advice that I've been told is you have to gauge people a bit quickly. Like, is this person actually interested, or do they just want to like talk to you? Because you don't want to waste time with people that are like kind of hyping you up, but are never going to open out their pocket. Because all that's going to do is frustrate you. And then also you're missing out on people that would potentially give you money.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is don't do what I did and resign without another job, because that was, I mean, in hindsight, I wouldn't have changed it, and I had savings because I was actually looking to like buy a house. So I had like the down payment for that. So I had some money, but that ran out, right? Because there was nothing coming in, and that was now stressful. I have support, I have my parents and, others, but I don't like asking people for money.
I get that.
So it's just like, oh gosh. And that really was a big struggle for me last year. It was like, hey, how am I gonna like eat? Right? So if possible, definitely save up a lot, like plan it out. That you have enough money so that when you are actually starting out, that you have the funds to survive, even if it's just you. Like, okay, map out maybe $5,000 a month for your whatever it is, like all your bills, whatever it is, map it out, have that, and then take that bigger leap, right? Not saying don't start your company or start the idea, but when you like quit your job,
that's it.
Yeah, that's it till you start, right? Start your own thing. So that would be my biggest advice, because I didn't even plan on starting a company when I resigned. I just knew I couldn't do what I was doing. So yeah, definitely don't plan it out.
Yeah, I mean, I say sometimes people want to be entrepreneurs, and then sometimes you're pushed, right?
Right.
And you're kind of pushed into it based on circumstance, based on, the idea comes up and you're the only person who can do it, whatever that looks like. Some people have jobs, they're made redundant, and then they're like, okay, I'll do what I'm doing on an entrepreneur perspective, or they get fired, or they resign because it's toxic, whatever. Yeah. And so I feel like those pushed entrepreneurs are kind of like a little bit more driven. Yeah. I think 100%. Because you got to eat, right? So there you go.
Yeah. I mean, I was asked like, so when are you gonna actually start making money? I'm like, I'm working on that. Give me a minute. Like, and it's not that it was like a bad question, but it's just like putting salt in the wound. Like, I'm doing my best over here. Yeah. But yeah. It's definitely character building.
Yeah, for sure. Like a little character building. Yeah. Yeah, that's hilarious. So you mentioned a little while ago about having advisors in your life. So how important have like your advisors or / mentors been in kind of guiding you through your career?
Oh, like super important. 100%. I would not be here if it wasn't for them. I can be stubborn. I'm a Taurus. So if I like have something in my mind, I'm like, this is it. Sometimes I'm a bit difficult to sway, but I think as I've grown and matured, I've come a bit more open to like listening a bit more than before. But no, when it comes to me being here and saying I'm an entrepreneur, like I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for some very key advisors and mentors in my life. And I met them at key points where it was pivotal of what I was going to do. So like with my PhD, my supervisor I actually met in my undergraduate, created the position for me. His wife actually was like, why don't you get another scholarship? And I was like, oh, that makes sense. So that's why I got the postgraduate scholarship. I went for that here, got that. They've been like, mentors all throughout. When I told him that I want to start a company, he was like, really? I was like, yeah, what do you think? He's like, I could see it. And then, so he's been there. And then the couple that actually told me to go to a university to get recognition and put on my CV, pivotal moment, because I wanted to leave where I was, but I didn't know what to do. And they also were the couple that guided me through the political situation here, and I wouldn't have been able to get through that if it wasn't for their guidance. I mean, I've been told by so many people now after the fact that they are amazed that I made it out unscathed. Because they're like, normally people come out chewed to bits, and you managed to come out better than you went in. Like, I'm like, because I had advisors. So I really do cherish them. I'm not always the best when listening, but I am, getting better. So definitely need those mentors.
Yeah, I think it's super important. You need people, especially, and we also know who to go to for the advice we're looking for.
100%,
right?
yeah.
And that's why I think it's important to have more than one as well. So you know who to go. Not one person is going to know everything.
Exactly.
So it's also important to have multiple people in your life for that. So what would you say, or who would you say is your biggest kind of inspiration / motivation?
I got asked this question like a few weeks ago, and I was stumped. And I haven't given it much more thought. Okay. Mind you, that question that I was asked a few weeks ago was like a Bermudian person. So I was like, ooh. I think this might sound a bit corny.
No
but
judgment.
When it comes to like my inspiration, it is actually people like in the science field who, before they made their discovery, like it didn't look at all like what they thought. So someone that comes to mind is actually Alan Turing. I don't identify with him in any way other than the fact that he's like a great mind. So he's the one that created computers. For him, and I've seen like a few of the movies and documentaries, and for him to come up with that, everyone was laughing at him. Like, what are you talking about? Or like, that's too much money. And it was just like, it didn't seem like it was going to come together. But here we are today using everything that, you know what I mean? Like he built. So those are the types of people that I kind of look up to, because I honestly can say I feel like in those moments before you have such a breakthrough like idea, you really have to dig deep. And I feel like that's where I'm at as well. So I kind of resonate with that. Yeah.
Okay. And then the last question that everyone answers before they can get off the couch.
Okay.
But is, no, you gotta answer. Okay. Is what do you want to be remembered for when you're no longer on this planet and someone says, Dr. Carika Weldon, you know, what do you want them to say about you?
The biggest thing I want my legacy to be is that I never forgot where I came from. And not just like, oh, she never forgot where she came from, but that I made sure I brought others with me. I think it's too many times where Bermudians, yes, we go away to school and then we don't give back into the island. Yes, we can go off and become great things. And I just want to make sure that that is part of my legacy, as well as just being a public servant. Like, that I don't put myself before everyone else, that I will put country first. I think that's the biggest things for me. Yeah.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Weldon.
Thank you for
being
me
here today. I really appreciate it. So if my listeners or viewers, I don't know what to say these days, want to get in contact with you to learn more about CariGenetics, or just to, I guess, let's start there about CariGenetics. How can they find out more about you?
So we have a website, actually just updated. So it's CariGenetics.com, CariGenetics. So Cari for Caribbean and genetics. And you can, reach out to us. It has, I think, our email at the bottom. And then we have all our social medias as well. You can find us. It's just CariGenetics. We're pretty responsive, so you can reach out that way.
Perfect. And then if anyone wants to learn more about you or follow you personally, what are your links for that?
I'm mostly on Twitter.
Okay. Yes.
So my Twitter handle is actually my first and middle name, so it's at Carika Weldon. So yeah, I tend to be on there quite a lot with the giggles. That's something else I do as well. Netflix and Twitter.
Twitter is a comical place.
It's and it's so fun. You have to be there in the moment, and it's just
if you miss it, it's gone.
If you miss it, it's gone. But when you're there, it's like amazing. I remember when Twitter thought it was gonna crash, and everyone was like, "All right, bye everyone. Like see you that night." Oh my god, that was crazy. But yeah, so Twitter would be an easy place to reach me. I'm also on Facebook, so if you add me, I will most likely add you back. And you can just message me that way. That's how you can reach me.
All right, perfect.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So once again, we had Dr. Carika Weldon on with us today. She is the founder of CariGenetics. It again. Right. Cari, there we go. CariGenetics here in Bermuda, but servicing all of the region of the Caribbean.
Yep.
So if you want to learn more about her, please follow her on Twitter and or go to the website for CariGenetics.com. Thank you again for spending some time with me today and my guest, Dr. Carika Weldon, and hopefully you were able to take something away from her journey, learn something from her as a new entrepreneur, but also remember to always be resilient in your careers and to always give back to your country and not make everything always about yourself, and make sure that you're a servant to all mankind. Thanks again for watching Hustle Her Podcast.